Hello everyone. Today we are going to tell you a story about some events that you might not be aware of that occurred in our river, the Pavia River.
It all started when a salmon-truta, most commonly known as trout, knocked at Pavia's most famous detective's door, Inspector Diggs. He explained to Diggs that he had just found his mother's dead body with a plastic bag over a rear fin. This wasn't the first time the earthworm had received a case like this one. In fact, a lot of fishes and other inhabitants of the river had been going to his office due to murders, so he decided to take the case in order to unfold this mystery.
They both went back to the scene of the crime. Dick started investigating. He found the remnants of the plastic bag and realized they made up a logo. He couldn't really understand what it stood for, so they decided to go around the river and ask the rest of the animals if they knew what it was, or if they had any information that could develop the case further.
They were baffled by how uninhabited the river was. The Pavia River had never had many species inhabiting it. But now, with these homicides that had been taking place, it had really begun to look completely empty. The first person they interrogated was a Lotra Lotra L, or, as you may know it, an otter.
They started by asking it about the bag. He claimed that he did not know where it came from, but that he had seen that symbol before. It was being used by a very shady group that had been approaching various individuals and asking them weird questions, like if they had witnessed any suspicious behavior happening along the river shore, or if anyone had any idea about the origin of all the trash that had been floating around the river for a while.
The animal also added that it had seen a ton of others covered in some kind of liquid, but it didn't know where it came from. Everyone in the river was aware that something weirdly wrong was happening with the river, since it had started to turn greener and greener as days went by. Diggs was set to discover where those strange liquids were coming from, as well as what or who was causing the murders, and now he started to think that they might be related.
Lotra Lotra L gave our detective some more information regarding the suspicious group and took him to the secret club he had last seen them. It wasn't inside the river though, it was by the riverside and they had to walk, or crawl for the earthworm, for a few meters to get there, but they finally reached their destination.
In there were a few Ratus novegicus and Bufu. Diggs talked to them, but they were very hesitant, so he had to give them a reward in trade for the information they had that could be helpful to the investigation. They finally gave in and told him that they knew who was guilty for all the disaster that was taking place in that natural habitat of so many species. They were part of a corporation that was trying to go against the criminals, but unfortunately they were much stronger and more powerful than them, and due to that they weren't able to do anything to help their so loved river.
It finally clicked. It all made sense to Diggs now. Who else would be able to cause such huge damage and be so heartless as to pollute the home of tons of species? The humans, of course. The humans had been leaving their trash next to the river, and it had eventually gone into it, killing a bunch of animals like fish, birds, etc. Diggs knew he had to do something, but what could such a small earthworm do against such a numerous strong enemy? If only they could bring them to court. Even then, they didn't have enough evidence.
That's when a particularly large Galemus pyrenaicos, or a Pyrenean desman, as he was known in the society, interrupted his ramblings. He claimed that he possessed the means to lure a human into a court. He instructed Diggs to use his renowned detective skills to acquire as many evidence as he could. Many days later, a certain human was walking around the river with her friends, drinking a can of soda that she promptly threw into the water. This was the sign the Pyrenean desman needed. together with many other Desmonds and hordes of mice, they overwhelmed and captured the human.
They took him to court, and Dix showed the judge Turdos Merula the many clues he had discovered. Firstly, Dix presented Evidence A, a group of unusually caring humans from the local town near the river in an attempt to bring awareness to the various issues the water course faced, decided to test the water quality of the river through 2 experiments. The first one consisted in putting leaves inside little bags made of nets, and then suspending them inside the river. As time passed, the very important decomposers that inhabit the river would consume the dead leaves. They took out the bags, they noticed that the leaves had suffered less decomposition than they should have. This meant that the river harbored less of those beings than normal, information whose extrapolation led them to the conclusion that the river's water wasn't well suited for life.
Then came Evidence B, the previously mentioned group of humans as part of their testing initiative. Also used some weird devices that they called sensors. They introduced these sensors in various points around the river. Then they analyzed the data, only to discover that the river's oxygen and conductivity levels were under the nominal values. This meant that the water was not in very good condition, special for the wildlife. This continued on the evidence C. He told the owner about the various dead bodies of animals that kept appearing all around the river. They all had 2 things in common. They were all covered in a weird, dark fluid that Dix believed came out of the pipes he was about to mention, and they all had teeny bits of a moldable and light substance that Dix now knew was plastic, a human product.
He moved on to Evidence D, talking about the various sewage pipes his surveyors had found scattered around the river, along with heaps of all kinds of residues produced by humans. Finally, Diggs got to Evidence E. An old friend of his, Columba Livia Domestica, also known as Pierre the Pigeon, met with him to inform him about the state of the world. Apparently, what was happening in the Pavia River was happening all around the world, and on a much larger and intense scale. Dix finished his statement presenting the circumstances of her capture, how she had mercilessly thrown a can into the river. The judge was overwhelmed. Already certain of its verdict, she asked the human if she wanted to present his defense. Ashamed of her mistakes, she denied, pleading guilty.
The blackbird judge banged her gavel and declared its decision. The human race was guilty of neglecting the safety of the environment, destroying property, genocide, manslaughter, and many other crimes against nature. The sentence for humanity was committing to using all of the resources they had available to fix all the problems they had caused.
Diggs and his partner felt truly accomplished since they had solved that mystery successfully and quickly and had contributed to the health of the species living in Rio Pavia. After the trial, the conditions of the river had gotten much better and the sudden deaths of animals stopped occurring.
This story comes to show how important it is to take care of the environment that surrounds us and to be aware that the human species is not the only one on the planet. Plus, we would not be able to survive if we kept killing other living beings, even if it seems like that they don't have any influence in our lives, just like the animals inhabiting the Pavia River.
This river is essential to the ecosystem of our region, and in the last few years, it has documented increasing levels of pollution, which is concerning. There are big quantities of oils, unidentified liquids, and simply trash being thrown into the river, enabling the regeneration and survival of the fauna and flora that exist there.
We are the ones destroying these ecosystems, therefore we should be the ones trying to save them.